This video you're about to see is unpleasant. If you wish to see a movie that's Vicennial, a word which here means a period of 20 years, then you come to the right place. This guy is named Lemony Snicket, and it is his duty to document the story about the orphans. Alright, I know I narrate it in Lemony Snicket way, but hey, I wanted to do a good intro. But yes, A Series of Unfortunate Events movie from 2004 has turned 20 years old this year. Yeah, it came out December, just a week before Christmas, but hey, that worked out. This is a video I wanted to do for a while. I did mention the movie once in my top 5 most watched movies video, and it was in my top 10, couldn't get it closer to top 5, but I did watch the movie many times. Not much, but it was close. But yeah, it's time for this movie to get talked about. What's the premise? The Baudelaire children are now orphans after losing to their parents and even a house that was destroyed in a fire. They had to live with Count Olaf, who's also an actor by trade. He's secretly plotting to steal their parents' vast fortune, and since Count Olaf is not pleased with them, he tried to attempt to get rid of them, but failed. And the plot continues with the Baudelaires visiting an uncle and an aunt, and Count Olaf being in disguise. But yeah, the plot is pretty insane if you ask me. But I know the plot is being crammed into the whole movie, but we'll get to that later. Now, before I get into the movie, I have an interesting memory on it. By around late 2004, I've seen commercials of A Series of Unfortunate Events movie, and I'm like, what is this movie? It seems interesting. And yeah, I keep seeing the commercials of this movie a lot more. Even Jim Carrey stars in it. I had to see this movie so bad. So, the following month, January 2005, I went to see it in the theaters with my mom, and I was ready for the movie. And not gonna lie, the first minute of the movie totally caught me off guard. The opening of the movie has this happy little elf animated stuff, and I was like, is this the right movie I'm watching? Thankfully, it is the right movie, and the narrator said that this is the wrong movie. Totally caught me off guard opening, but great payoff. After the movie was done, and loving it, I bought the DVD in April of that year. Plus, I would have loved to own a collector's edition with all the bonus features, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. So after 20 years, what did I think of this movie? I know this is going to be a controversial opinion, but I actually love this movie. Now, hear me out. I don't think it's one of the best ones, but I put it as like one of my favorite movies from my childhood before the downfall started a couple years after the movie came out. Another thing I wanted to mention is I didn't watch Harry Potter from the start. In fact, my parents didn't want me to watch those series. But when I saw A Series of Unfortunate Events, I felt like it was a total experience. Like Harry Potter, they were based off the books by Lemony Snicket, which I didn't know they were based off then, and after the movie came out, they made it to 13 books, which ended the series in 2006, which I read about 8 or 9 books around that time, but not all of them. Maybe one day. But the movie was surprisingly really good from the beginning, though it's not perfect. The main thing I wanted to mention about the movie is the tone. I know some movies are not usually the highlight of tone, but this is an important one. This is a movie where it takes itself seriously. Funnily enough, the genre for the movie is black comedy adventure. Yeah, that's the genre. Like, it is a dark movie, don't get me wrong, but they keep the tone fine for older kids. It's messed up sometimes, like Count Olaf trying to get rid of the Baudelaires, in which he tried leaving them in the car, locked in, and left on the train track while a train coming. But thankfully, the kids save the day, and Count Olaf is defeated. Not only those two, but even the loss of Uncle Monty and Aunt Josephine. Like, jeez, did Count Olaf wanted to get rid of those two? Probably. But yeah, the tone of this movie is all over the place and messed up, but in a good way. When I first watched it, it was dark tone and it can be depressing sometimes, like at the beginning when the children lost their house in the fire. Even moments like this where a hurricane just wrecked Aunt Josephine's house. I don't want the Baudelaires to die, of course not. Why would you think I want them to survive in a situation like this? The orphans are like the heroes, you want to root for them, and Count Olaf acting like a bad guy should lose. But yeah, the tone is crazy, but in a good way. Now let's get into the characters. I'll start with Count Olaf first. Some people will like him or hate him. And while I get the hate, he's not that bad. Is it my favorite Jim Carrey performance? No, but there's better roles I like more. But Carrey as playing as Count Olaf is pretty interesting. Some say that in the first third of the movie, Count Olaf is pretty annoying. And while I get it, it's not that bad. It is Carrey doing his shtick of voices and faces. Like, yeah, he mimics Sonny a couple times. He does that dinosaur acting. Like, yeah, it's silly, but if you can't bypass that, well, it will get better in the movie for him. Thankfully, when the first act ends, Carrey as Count Olaf gets a lot better. He disguises as Stefano and then Captain Sham. And at the end of the movie, he gets more comedy, and of course, he's over the top. I've seen some critics say that Count Olaf is pretty over the top character, and I have to agree. I think Jim Carrey was a very wise choice to pick the role. As for Neil Patrick Harris in the TV series, well, we'll get to that later. You have the other guardians for the Baudelaires like Uncle Monty and Aunt Josephine, and again, good casting picks. Billy Connolly playing Uncle Monty, and Meryl Streep playing Aunt Josephine. Uncle Monty is the reptile researcher that wants to take them on a trip to Peru, and Aunt Josephine is paranoid because of realtors, but she likes grammar. Then you have Mr. Poe, who is a banker of the children, where he takes them to a guardian at a place, sometimes strict but also responsible. There are other characters that are minor that I do agree that they don't have time to shine, but it could have been important, like Count Olaf's minions. You have the one that has hook hands, the one that's bald head, and two white-faced women. Would have been nice for them to have more screen appearances. Same goes to Justice Strauss, played by Catherine O'Hara, and even the Constable, played by Cedric the Entertainer. Again, would have been nice for more appearances. Little nitpick on them, but it's okay. Now let's get into the Baudelaire children, Klaus, Violet, and Sonny. Other than Count Olaf, I think they're probably my favorite characters in the movie. I mean, as a kid, I cared for them because they're smart and intelligent. One likes to invent, one likes to read, and one likes to bite things with her sharp teeth. Okay, Sonny's the weakest, but at least she was cute and knows how to babble her words. When I watched this movie, I knew these children were great from the start. Learning to know what's going to happen or trying to get out of this madman. Either way, I really do like the Baudelaire children. They're smart, they're never dumb at all. Plus, after the movie, it's a shame that the actors barely appeared afterwards. I mean, you can find Emily and Liam in interviews on YouTube or on social media. And as for the twins that played Sonny, well, this is the closest photo I can find, but I know they're in their 20s as of today. Anyways, besides the tone and characters, the comedy is pretty good for the most part, but it's not laugh out loud hilarious. Like, I remember the audience were laughing at the theater, but at home I laughed, but not much. Another highlight in the movie is the makeup, hence that it won an Oscar for that category. The costumes where it feels like a past time period, and even the art direction. Some scenery were designed using forced perspective techniques combining with matte painting. It looks really good. And like I said, I find it dark and imaginative. Even the original score is incredibly good. That's Thomas Newman, the guy that did the score for Finding Nemo. Perfect fit for the score. For a movie based off the books I didn't read from the start, I think they did a good job. There are nitpicks in the movie. Sometimes the narration is barely followed at times, like the shocking moment right when the reptile room segment ends. Yeah, why? It's kind of confusing why the narrator said that. Same goes to the ending where Count Olaf gets punished, and while I like that the villain loses and get what he deserves, but could have been better for the narration. But the narration seems pretty well for the most part throughout the movie, despite those two I mentioned. Also, I don't like they used CGI on Sonny a couple times. It's not the worst CG effect, but it looks off-putting. The ending does have a fake-out moment that Mr. Poe made one last stop for the Baudelaires, and guess what? It's the house of theirs. What? Yeah, even I was confused at that. Looks like it's restored, but no, it's still burned. But I did like they got a letter from them, and Violet reading the whole thing, realizing it was their parents, and inside the letter was a spyglass, the one that revealed in the beginning and carried over throughout the movie. I like that. But the fake out is too odd. Thanks, Mr. Poe. Another nitpick, and this is a big one, at least for me, is that it crams 3 books into one movie, and it's kinda rushed. Don't get me wrong, the running time of the movie is great, no problem with it. But, like I said, it crams with books 1, 2, 3, and then back to book 1 with the marriage play. Funnily enough, they were originally going to have Count Olaf Escaped, in which it was trying to foreshadow the next follow-up, in which there were going to be sequels similar to the books, but sadly Paramount and Nickelodeon movies never did it. But besides those issues, I still really like it overall. I heard that it's got a backlash. I mean, it's not a hate, but it's a dismiss. I think it's pretty unfair. And the main reason is because there was another A Series of Unfortunate Events. Yeah, in 2017, Netflix made their own series of the same name, but focuses all of the books. When this got announced back 10 years ago, I got really excited for a new one. And while the 2004 movie holds a place in my heart, the Netflix series that ran for 3 seasons is a very good show, and I actually do recommend for people that haven't seen it. And yeah, which one is better? It's no contest, but the Netflix series wins. It has more world, more story, and more characters. The 2004 movie, despite its issues, I really liked it. Will this movie make it to my favorite movies list? It's pretty complicated, but there are movies I like more. But you may never know because of nostalgic movies, and this is one of them. That was all for the review of A Series of Unfortunate Events movie. And no joke, the next movie review is on Jim Carrey. Oh snap, could it be Sonic? Yep, it is. And I will see you all next week during Christmas.